Adding and subtracting fractions and mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Now when we do this, our goal is to get common denominators, that they both have the same denominator in order to subtract or add so we can get to the correct answer. So in order to do that, we need to find the least common multiple but both denominators share. So we have, in this first problem, we have 3 and 5 for our denominators. So if you need to, off to the side or far away from the problem, go ahead and write out some of the first few multiples of each number until you come to the least common multiple that they both share. And here I am doing that really quick down at the bottom, and I've noticed already that 15 is the least common multiple that both 3 and 5 share. So I'm going to use 15 for my new denominator. I'm going to make equivalent fractions by using 15 for the common denominator that they'll both share. Now here's what I need to do next. I need to figure out how many times 3 goes into 15. What is the relationship between 3 and 15? Well, in order to get from a 3 to a 15, we had to multiply by 5. And because we multiplied by 5 to get to the 15 for the denominator, we're going to need to do the same for the numerator. So we're going to multiply the numerator by 5 as well. So 1 times 5 is 5. Now you can write this out or do it mentally, whatever is easier for you. But if you're writing it out, make sure you write it tiny so it's not blending in with the fraction. Now I look at the next one and I figure out I need to try to figure out what the relationship is between the two denominators. And to go from 5 to 15, we had to multiply by 3. So 5 times 3 is 15. Since I multiplied the denominator by 3, I need to multiply the numerator by 3 as well. So 4 times 3 is 12. And now I'm ready to add the numerators together, which is 5 and 12, which is 17, and the denominator will stay the same. Now, what I've discovered is that I have an improper fraction for my answer. And our goal is always to get no matter what our fractional answer is, down to lowest terms. But in this case, it's an improper fraction. We're going to need to turn it into a mixed number so that the numerator becomes smaller. And remember, how we do that is we take the numerator and divide by the denominator. So 15 divides into 17 one time. Then we subtract and we have a 2 remainder. This 2 becomes the numerator, and our denominator is the divisor of 15. So 17 fifteenths is the same as 1 and 2 fifteenths. So if I added 1/3 to 4 fifths, I would get 1 and 2 fifteenths. Now let's do the same thing similar to subtracting two fractions. I'm going to subtract 7/8 and 1/2. I need to figure out what can both 2 and 8 divide into that is the least common multiple. Well, I know that 2 can divide into 8 evenly, so 8 must be my least common multiple. So I'm going to use 8 for the least common multiple for both fractions. Now the relationship between the two denominators here is that I took 8 and multiplied by 1 to get 8. So that means I need to multiply the numerator by 1 as well to get the numerator up here. So 7 times 1 is 7. This is times 1 here. Now the relationship between this denominator and this one is, what did I do to the 2 to get the 8? Well, to get from the 2 to the 8, I had to multiply by 4. Now since I multiplied this denominator by 4, I need to multiply the numerator by 4 as well. So 1 times 4 is 4. Now I'm ready to subtract. So 7/8 minus 4/8. Subtract the numerators, 7 and 4, and I get 3. And the denominator, of course, stays the same. So 7/8 minus 1/2 is 3/8. Notice in both problems that when I was working to find the answer that I kept everything in the same column. So we want to keep the numbers lined up. I did not write 3/8 here under the problem because this is where I was working. I did not write 1 and 2 fifteenths way over here because this is the column in which I was working in. And since I ended up with 7/15 here, then I had to push out to show the reduced in lowest terms, in this case showing the improper fraction as a mixed number. Okay, let's try a couple more examples. Looking here, I have 6 and 4. Now I need to figure out what is the least common multiple that 6 and 4 share. If I need to, it's okay to go ahead and write out the first few multiples of each number so we can figure out what the least common multiple is between both of them. And oops, I've already discovered that really quick. And the least common multiple of 4 and 6 is 12. So I'm going to use 12 for my denominator for both of these fractions. Then I'm going to discover the relationship between the denominator so I can find the numerator. So between 6 and 12, what I did to the 6 to get the 12 was I multiplied by 2. And since I multiplied this denominator by 2, I need to multiply the numerator by 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. Down here, the relationship between 4 and 12 is, I multiplied by 3 to get to 12. So I need to multiply the numerator by 3, and I get 3 times 3, which is 9. Now 9 plus 4 is 12. No, oops, 13. Oh, yo, yo. And the denominator is the same, which is 12. Now, since this is an improper fraction, I need to turn it into a mixed number. And I'm going to do that off to the side away from the problem. And this is 1. Denominator, or the remainder becomes the numerator. The denominator is the divisor. So the answer is 1 and 1/12. So 2 6 added to 3/4 is 1 and 1/12. Okay, let's look at 8/10, take away 1/5. So I'm looking at the two denominators, and I'm going to find the least common multiple between 5 and 10. And I know that 5 can divide into 10, so 10 must be the least common multiple that they'll both share. So 10 will be my new denominator. And now I'm going to look at the relationship. From the 10 here to the 10 here, we had to multiply by 1. So we multiply by 1 on the numerator. 8 times 1 is 8. To go from the 5 to the 10, I multiply by 2. And since I multiply the denominator by 2, I need to multiply this numerator by 2 to get the new numerator of 2 as well. Now I subtract, I end up with 8 tenths minus 2 tenths. So 8 minus 2 is 6. And the denominator stays the same. Now this is not in lowest term. 6 tenths is not lowest term, so I'm going to reduce it. What number can both 6 and 10 be divided by? The highest factor would be 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the answer in lowest terms is 3/5. So 8/10 take away 1/5 is 3/5. Now let's do what we know and apply it to adding and subtracting mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Here's going to be a little different. What we're going to need to do is make sure that we bring our whole numbers over with us and work with those. We're going to extend the vinculum so it's under the problem we're working with. Okay, go ahead and bring the whole numbers over right away. Now look here, we have 6 and 12 for our denominators. So the least common multiple that both of them share is 12. They both can divide into 12. So let's put 12 for our common denominator. Now we're going to look. What did we do to the 6 to get to 12? We multiplied 6 by 2 to get 12, so we're going to multiply 3 by 2 to get 6 for our numerator. 12 goes into 12 one time, so we multiplied the 4 by 1 to get 4. Now we're ready to add. Add the whole numbers, 8 and 1, and you get 9. Add these numerators, 6 and 4, and you get 10. And make sure that your whole number is larger than your fraction numbers. And then 12 is our denominator. Now 10 twelfths can be reduced. Both 10 and 12 can be divided by 2. So we're going to we need to put this mixed number in reduced lowest terms. So we're going to bring that whole number 9 over, and then we're going to reduce 10 twelfths. They're both divisible by 2, so 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. So the answer is 9 5/6. Now let's go ahead and do this next one. Remember to put equal signs. Bring the whole numbers over. Extend the vinculum. Remember, we're always staying in the same column we're working in. We have 5 and 7. Now I need to figure out what the least common multiple that both of them share. Well, the multiple, I look at 7, that's the greatest multiple. 7. I know 5 can't divide into 7. The next multiple of 7 is 14. And I know 5 can't divide into 14. So the next multiple of 7 is 21. 5 cannot divide evenly into 21. The next multiple of 7 is 28. And I know 5 can't divide into 28 evenly. The next multiple of 7 is 35. Oh, 5 can divide into 35, so it looks like 35 will be our common denominator that we are going to use here for both fractions. So, looking at the relationship between these denominators, we did 5 times what is 35? 5 times 7. So we're going to multiply the numerator by 7 as well. 3 times 7 is 21. 7 times 5 is 35, so we'll multiply the numerator by 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Now we're ready to add. Add the whole numbers, 7 and 3, you get 10. Add the numerators, 21 and 10, and you get 31. And 35 is our denominator. Now we ask ourselves, can 31 35ths be reduced, or is it in lowest terms? Knowing what we know, that 31 is a prime number, its only factors are 1 and 31, and I know that 35 cannot be divided by 31, so it is in lowest terms. Now we'll work on this next one, but now we're going to subtract. Put your equal signs, bring over the whole numbers, extend the vinculum. Now we're going to look at these two fractions. We need to make a common denominator, and I look at 4 and 8, and both 4 and 8 can divide into 8, so 8 must be the least common multiple they both share. Remember, if you need to, write out your multiples so you can find the least common multiple they both share. Now 8 goes into 8 one time, so we'll multiply the numerator by 1 as well. 4 goes, oops, this should be 8, I forgot, because I need both denominators to be the same. 4 divides into 8 two times, so 4 times 2 makes 8, so we're going to multiply the numerator by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Now we're ready to subtract. 14 minus 7 is 7. 5 minus 2 is 3, and we leave the denominator the way it is. Then I ask myself, can 3/8 be reduced, or is it already in lowest terms? And it is. So our answer is 7 3/8. Finally, let's do the last one here. Remember to equal sign, bring the whole number over. Looking at 5 and 10, the least common multiple that both 5 and 10 share is, oh, I know 5 can divide into 10, so 10 must be the least common multiple. The relationship between 5 and 10 is, I multiplied 5 by 2 to get 10, so I'm going to need to multiply the numerator by 2 to get the numerator 4. 10 times 1 is 10, so I'm going to multiply the numerator by 1 as well. 3 times 1 is 3. And now I'm ready to subtract. 28 minus 17. 8 minus 7 is 1, and 2 minus 1 is 1. 4 minus 3 is 7, and 10 for the denominator stays the same. Now if you look, it almost looks like this whole number is blending into the numerator. So I need to make sure that the whole number is larger, than the fraction numbers. 7/10 is reduced to lowest terms. It cannot go any further down. So our final answer is 11 7/10. And that's how you add, subtract fractions and mixed numbers with unlike denominators.